what's the fastest way around the racetrack? If you're in the Blaze system, you know how much we talk about what's the fastest way around the racetrack. Where do we spend the most time, or what are we trying to accomplish? What we're trying to accomplish is the rider or driver that is at full throttle the longest, right? So the person that has their car or bike in the position where they're at full throttle the longest. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. But there's also a little bit more to that. The way that lets me spend the most amount of time at full throttle. That actually is a very important statement. The fastest way around the racetrack, the way that lets me spend the most amount of time at full throttle, because that then brings the entry into play, where we see, especially in 180-degree corners, where people are trying to come in and they're going to open up a lot of 180s, and they end up having to get off the throttle slow earlier, because they have to turn sooner and then turn with more angle, which that's an important statement here, is the way that lets me spend the most amount of time at full throttle. Pretty important deal. What really matters? What really matters in understanding this whole thing is your apexes and the slowest point of the corner, because that's what matters. Let me just draw here a couple of things so we can kind of really talk about it. So if I draw just some fictitious 90-degree corner, it actually seems very simple. Okay, great. We want to have our slow point. Let's say it's an exit corner, meaning it's got a long exit. So our apex is, or our slow point, here's our apex. Our slow point ends up being about right here. So the idea is that we want to start positive acceleration and then get to full throttle to maximize the exit. Seems fairly simple. The important part of this is we want to make sure we keep this as our point of reference, is how does this affect where our slow point is? How does it affect where we have the direction change does, and where we're getting to essentially a wide open throttle? So that is our main point of reference. Important that we keep that. And of course, in a 90-degree turn, it makes it super, super easy to understand it. But if we make it a little bit more complicated, and this is where we have a lot of issues, is typically 180-degree corners. So if we draw a 180-degree corner, how should we be entering this particular 180? Let's say we're going this direction. So again, it all starts with the exit. So we want to think about the exit first. So if this is our apex here, great. And we want to be in a position to where we can drive past it, awesome. When we have a 180, the idea is that we want to differentiate it in between an entry and an exit. So we want to literally draw a line down the middle of it. We can call this A if you want. We can call this B if you want. But the A ends up being an entry corner, and the B ends up being an exit corner on a 180. So a lot of times the confusion ends up being how we enter it. We'll say small bike, or in the car world, low horsepower. A lot of times we'll see, okay, I'm going to come in wide, right? Come in wide, and then try to get everything done and get the thing going. The problem with that is you end up with a lot of steering wheel angle or lean angle early, and you give up the opportunity to use the brakes. So when we have a corner like this, a little bit in a chicane, but when do we double apex a 180 like this? And there's an answer to that. So instead, when we look at a corner like this, we would want to come in lower and straighter and get the direction change done more deliberately, and then drive it off. So we actually spend less time at maximum angle. But the more important part is you're coming in straighter. So you've reduced either motorcycle lean angle, or you've reduced lean angle on a car. So if you can do that, then you can apply more brakes. Coming in and getting it done this way, again, double apex, bring it in, get it slowed and pointed, and driving. I'm overdrawing this because a lot of it depends on the radius of the corner, which we can talk about a couple of different corners here in a second. When we end up with using this more quote outside late apex, whatever you want to call it. The problem is that we have to run more steering wheel angle earlier in here. So you're not in a position to use the brakes as well. You end up having too much steering wheel angle, and you end up having to slow much earlier than you do coming in with the wheel straighter or less angle. And regardless of whether it's a smaller car or a bigger car or small bike versus big bike, this is just how it goes. Again, the whole idea is, when can I have direction done? We're trying to get it done as early as possible. We're trying to get it driving as early as possible. But yet we also don't want to mess up the ability to get in to the corner in the least amount of time as well.